now joining us is the Attorney General for Massachusetts, Martha Coakley. Good afternoon, Martha. How are you?
I'm excellent. Good afternoon.
Well, how did you enjoy New Bedford this afternoon?
I always have a great time in New Bedford, and it was particularly interesting today to have a tour of the Joseph Abood factory. We got to see everybody hard at work, turning out those suits that I wish we were selling more of. If the economy turns around, we will. But we had a great afternoon, actually, with the mayor. Lieutenant Governor came down. We took a tour. I got to meet some of the workers and see the great work they're doing down there.
Well, I mean, if the economy turns around, there's certainly enough suits to go to a job interview for. We need that, though. What is your plan? What is your plan to bring jobs to Massachusetts, Attorney General?
I think what we need to do is a couple of things. We need to make sure that the businesses now, they want to borrow money, can get it. There seems to be a cap on loans to small businesses, and there is a lack of funds. I know this from talking to a variety of businesses around the Commonwealth. So let's get money available. Let's make sure that they get the tax breaks they need for the hiring and the training of workers they need to do. Let's make sure that we work sector by sector. For instance, I would work very closely with the mayor of New Bedford, your elected state officials, the private sector, and your not-for-profits to say, what is it that you need and how can I help and how do we move forward on it? And I think when you start to, as I know New Bedford has a work training investment board, you get money freed up and you get people starting to expand their businesses, and you also work on the kinds of things that keep businesses from expanding and keep them from moving here, like expensive health care that we need to address. Then you start to slowly get people to recognize that they can and will expand and stay here in Massachusetts.
Attorney General, on Monday night in the debate when discussing national security and in particular Afghanistan, you mentioned that all the terrorists were gone from Afghanistan, and I'm reading the name Harold Brown, father of three, and I'm reading the name of Navy SEAL Jeremy Wise, another father, Scott Robertson, father, who was expected to have a child in February. These guys were killed on December 30th. What do you say when all these obvious casualties are happening right now by terrorists in Afghanistan to that?
Let me tell you what I said. We were in a discussion about whether we should expand troops or not. I've said I disagree with the president's decision to send 30,000 more American troops over there at the cost of $30 billion, when what we should be doing is targeting the terrorists wherever they are. With, unfortunately, and I feel extremely badly for all of the men and women who are hurt or killed. The CIA obviously had someone who was a double agent who took advantage of them. That wasn't a troop issue. That was an intelligence issue. I will do whatever we need to do to make sure that our troops are safe, that our homeland is safe, and that we go after terrorists.
Well, when you say target, what do you mean target? Target means a number of things. Are you saying we'll send troops into wherever they are?
No, I think that troops aren't always the answer. And I think that we need to understand that we went into Afghanistan, and I think everybody agreed that there was a strong point there with Taliban hosting al-Qaeda. And I understand, and sources say there's maybe 100 or so al-Qaeda left in Afghanistan. We don't need 30,000 troops to go after 100 al-Qaeda. What we do need to do is develop the resources to make sure we know where they are. If they're in Pakistan, if they're in Yemen, if they're training in other sites, let's get the information we need to neutralize them. I don't cede my patriotism or my protection of this country to anybody. I spent 25 years going after dangerous people. I've worked on the Organized Crime Strike Force. I worked after 9/11 with our federal authorities, our state authorities, to make sure Boston was going to be safe after the hijackers hit those towers coming out of Boston. So we can disagree on how we do this, but we don't disagree that one of our high priorities is to keep our homeland safe, to keep our people safe, and to make sure that we keep our allies safe.
Right.
And we just need to do it very smartly, and we need to do it with the resources that are appropriate.
You've run on your record as Attorney General. In particular, you talk about protecting kids. Jessica's law, I think, was not as strong as some other states had it. According to, I think, your critic and opponent, Scott Brown, you've been part of the lobbying to get it altered just a little bit. The Brockton Enterprise has reported that only 11 cases, and since the law has come into effect, has Jessica's law been enacted? I want to go to the Scott Winfield case, the Keith Winfield case that the Boston Globe reported on. Your opponent in your last race, Larry Frizzelli, accused you of accepting money from his father, a Teamster who steered money toward your campaign. This is a guy who obviously we know the horrid things he did to his 23-month-old, his wife's niece. You never sought for bail. You never had a dangerousness hearing, and he never went to jail under your tenure as a district attorney. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Let me go back to Jessica's law, though, because let's get our facts straight. Jessica's law is about punishment when people are convicted. And we looked very closely at what other states have done, what Massachusetts has done, and frankly, I'm the one who worked to make sure that we passed the Jessica's law that would keep the most dangerous in jail longer. Those who are convicted a second time around, those who go after young children. So let's be clear on the record. And I appeared on an Emily Rooney show with Scott Brown when he said, oh, we'll never pass Jessica's law, and if we do, I'll shave my head. Well, I haven't seen a haircut yet, and we've gotten a law in place that makes sense. What Scott Brown has never done is what I've done, is investigate and prosecute very difficult child abuse cases. Most kids, for instance, if they're too young, if they can't testify, we don't have cases to go forward. And I can tell you, if you have a minimum mandatory 25-year sentence for everyone who is accused of child abuse, you will make every child go to trial, and it won't be successful. What I wish Scott Brown had done would give more money to prosecutors, investigators, child abuse specialists, so we could do better prosecutions and make sure we keep dangerous people in jail. On the particular case you're mentioning, first of all, that was a 23-month-old child, nonverbal. Even the Globe didn't report that there was any political activity involved. That was a...
No, I separated the two. I said your opponent accused you of that, but they didn't even mention your opponent's accusation that Keith Winfield's dad was a Teamster who had the ability to steer money toward campaigns.
I know, but that's a ridiculous accusation, right. and actually it's totally ridiculous for one thing, because his dad had not been in the union for at least a year. I didn't know who his father was. And that union, he wasn't even in the union at the time that they supported him.
A year removed. I mean, all right. Anyway, go ahead.
But so let's take out that. Understand that Larry Frizzelli represented the mom in that case. The mom was one of the 4 people who might have been potentially guilty in that case. And let me be clear, because the Globe didn't even report that it was a case that was very difficult to investigate and prove, because at least 4 people had access to that child during the time when the act occurred. It was a heinous act, and we made sure that we investigated it thoroughly so that we could make a case and prove it beyond a reasonable doubt and get it tried and held on appeal. He is now in jail for the rest of his life. We did successfully what we should have done. And because we set up the case and proved it for a grand jury, and Jerry Leone, my friend, who also was a very good prosecutor, brought it to trial. Most cases in Massachusetts don't come to trial for at least 1 to 2 years.